evening. It is the 10th of March 2026 on The Explainer tonight.
Watu wameswali, amemaliza, amekunywa chai, ndio anakula ile chakula tunaita futari. Hata yakuwa amemaliza kwa sahani. Ile tu kitonge ya kwanza hiyo na akakimbia kwa barabara.
Another highway tragedy. A family in Malaha Webuye loses 6 members in a deadly road accident that has left 15 people dead.
Toka nje kuangalia, tukapata maji imesafika ni mingi, tukarudi ndani, tukatoa watoto nje, tukapanda kwa stairs.
Death toll rises to 49. Millions of shillings in property destroyed, more than 2,600 families left homeless as businesses begin to count their losses.
If broad-based decides, Parliament will decide. Is that true? Yes. Because we have the numbers to drive it through both houses of Parliament.
President Ruto proposes formation of an 8-member technical team to craft a UDA-ODM coalition agreement. Deaths in university. Police in Kakamega investigating a murder and suspected suicide incident at Masinde Muliro University. And tonight on The Explainer, we're tag teaming. No, it's not News Gang. No, it's not Thursday. You're right, it is Tuesday. But we thought we'd bring somebody on board just for... So we will get to what Sam Gituku is doing here. But first on The Explainer tonight, Power Talk is back. Today we're speaking with Esther Waititu, who's the Chief Financial Services Officer at Safaricom. And we're talking about ZD Trader and how it is redefining access to the capital markets through M-Pesa. So we're going to be talking about how you are able to buy shares, pay for them, get your dividends, sell them on ZD. That is the conversation we're having on Power Talk with Esther Waititu in just a moment here on The Explainer, but also tonight.
Right, talking about money, we'll be speaking to the Cabinet Secretary for National Treasury and Economic Planning, that is John Mbadi. He'll be here to talk about the National Infrastructure Fund. Of course, yesterday we saw the President signing it into law. Now he says that in the coming days, we'll see the establishment of the fund itself with the appointment of the Governing Council. So we'll be talking to him about understanding what exactly the National Infrastructure Fund is, the financing itself, and also how it's going to implement some of the projects that have been spoken about.
Indeed, lots to talk about tonight. So let's get the show started, shall we?
Live from Citizen TV, this is The Explainer with Yvonne Okwara.
Njoki Shege is our sign language interpreter. Let's begin the news tonight with a family that has lost 6 members in 2 Monday night accidents along the Webuye-Kitale Highway. The relatives had rushed to the scene because of an initial accident where 2 motorcycles had collided at the Malaha Junction. The accident claimed 15 lives, with 16 other people sustaining injuries. Laura Otieno now reports on the agony of yet another family bearing the scars of road carnage in the country.
Malaha village in Bungoma County is in mourning. 2 families are mourning their kin who are among the 15 fatalities from the Monday night accident along the Kitale-Webuye Highway. 9 of the people who perished had rushed to the scene in response to a fast accident where 2 motorcycles had collided.
Watu wameswali, amemaliza, amekunywa chai, ndio anakula ile chakula tunaita futari. Hata yakuwa amemaliza kwa sahani. Ile tu kitonge ya kwanza hiyo na akakimbia kwa barabara.
Watu 6, familia moja ambayo tulikuwa tunang'ang'ana kutoa kwa maji. Sasa tumefiwa na watu 6 kwa familia moja. Kwa jumla, the whole village, we have lost like 9 people.
According to a police report, two motorcycles had collided along the Kitale-Webuye highway at around 9 p.m. on Monday. However, rescue efforts by locals were cut short after a trailer heading towards Webuye lost control, ramming the crowd, killing 10 people on the spot.
Huyo wa pikipiki naye vile alianguka, kuna Nissan nilimpitia akamalizia. Alafu wakati tulikuwa watu wa kwao walikuja kwa wingi, walikuwa wanapiga nduru hapo akilia mtu wao, lakini trailer naye katoka huko ikalose control na ikamaliza watu, kagonga watu wote kwa mtaro.
Wakati matrela zilikuwa zinapita huko zikarudishwa zinapitia njia ya Kitale, watutengenezee matuta ama watutengenezee njia, maana hii njia itamaliza watu wengi.
Tuliweza kuokoa maisha ya watu 16. Watu 5 walifariki wakipata matibabu hapa katika hospitali. Mmoja kati ya 5 tulijaribu kumfanyia upasuaji lakini hatukufaulu. Alifariki akipata hiyo huduma katika chumba cha upasuaji.
The bodies have been moved to the Webuye County morgue pending identification and postmortem examination. Laura Otieno, Citizen TV.
President William Ruto has proposed the formation of an 8-member technical team to craft a UDA-ODM coalition agreement as the two parties draw even closer to a political deal ahead of next year's general election. Speaking when he received the report on the 10-point agenda on the UDA-ODM Memorandum of Understanding, President Ruto and the ODM party leader Dr. Oburu Oginga dismissed those who were opposed to the broad-based arrangement, saying it was meant to unite Kenyans and spur development. Emmanuel Tor reports.
The report, which was handed to the UDA party leader President William Ruto and the ODM party leader Dr. Oburu Oginga at a joint parliamentary group meeting of the two parties at the KICC Nairobi, highlighted the steps taken so far in the execution of the Memorandum of Understanding between the two political parties 1 year after the deal was signed between the president and the former ODM leader, the late Raila Odinga. The report stating that 2 billion shillings had been set aside for the compensation of protest victims who were killed by the police during the demonstrations, and that 3 out of 9 bills which emanated from the National Dialogue Committee had been passed by Parliament, with 4 others still at the mediation stage. The committee proposing, among other things, the formation of a broad-based mediation committee between the Senate and the National Assembly to fast-track the consideration and passage of the remaining 6 bills in Parliament, and that Parliament should expedite and conclude the outstanding NADCO bills within 90 days. It also recommended the prosecution and determination of ethics and corruption cases by mandated institutions within 6 months.
If broad-based decides, Parliament will decide. Is that true? Yes. Because we have the numbers to drive it through both houses of Parliament.
The broad-based arrangement goes up to 2027.
Because we cannot then say, between August and now, what has happened to the implementation of the 10-point agenda? It is ongoing.
The meeting also gave a green light to the formation of a task force to lead the UDA-ODM negotiations and legalize the broad-based political marriage ahead of next year's general election.
And we want to ask this PG to agree that we form a technical committee of 4 members each from UDA and ODM to take this process forward.
There will be a very, very prominent chapter on the role that the National Assembly and the Senate played to actualize the flagship projects of the broad-based administration.
The two leaders also taking an aim at the teams opposed to the broad-based government led by the ODM Secretary General Edwin Sifuna. The embattled SG gave the event a wide berth, maintaining the tenure of the 10-point agenda team had expired according to the MOU signed in March last year.
There are some people who want to appoint themselves supervisors, as if we made the commitment to them. We did not make the commitment to them. we met the commitment to the people of Kenya.
Those who thought that, who are saying that there is nothing absolutely which has been done on the 10-point agenda, shame on them.
Focus now shifts to the implementation of the 10-point agenda report, with Parliament, which is expected to carry the biggest chunk of the job, expected to come up with a team of members from both houses to fast-track the passage of the bills which are still lying in Parliament. Emmanuel Tor, Citizen TV, Parliament Buildings, Nairobi.
The Senate now wants Controller of Budget to freeze accounts of all governors who failed to appear before the Senate committees to answer to questions raised by the Auditor General. In a motion seen by Citizen Television, the Senate says failure to appear before its committees exposes taxpayers' money to continued plunder. Stephen Latour reports.
The Senate is now going for governors who have been snubbing their summons to appear to answer to questions raised by the Auditor General over their financial misuse. The Senate says some governors have become notorious and have continuously declined to appear before the Homa Bay Senator Moses Kajwang-led committee to explain audit queries. The Senate now says it is going to pass a motion to compel the Controller of Budget to exercise powers under Article 2285 of the Constitution and the PFM Act not to approve withdrawals from a county revenue fund by a county government whose governor has failed or declined to appear before a Senate committee to account for funds allocated to the county government in the preceding financial year. The Senate further says that the Controller of Budget shall consider a letter from the clerk of the Senate communicating a resolution of the committee as sufficient evidence that the county governor or accounting officer has failed or declined to appear before the committee or that they have subsequently appeared before the committee. The Senate says certain county governors have repeatedly failed to honor invitations and summons issued by the County Public Accounts Committee, thereby contravening the constitutional and statutory duty to account to funds allocated to their respective county governments. According to the Senate, failure by county governors and relevant accounting officers to appear before Senate committees undermines the constitutional oversight mandate of the Senate and weakens accountability in the management of public resources. Continued disregard of Senate invitations and summons, according to Parliament, sets a precedent that erodes the principles of transparency, accountability, and respect for constitutional institutions. Governors have, however, blamed the Senate committee of turning rogue and resorting to extortion and turning the sessions into an arena of settling political scores when governors appear before them. Stephen Latour, Citizen TV.
A petition seeking to halt the new instant traffic fine system has been dismissed. Driver Kennedy Maingi Mutwiri had moved to court arguing that the system gives NTSA excessive powers that could be used to harass motorists on the roads. But NTSA Director General Nashon Kondiwa has defended the initiative, saying it will help restore discipline on Kenyan roads. Melita Oletenges reports.
The new instant traffic fines system targeting speeding motorists launched by NTSA on Monday has sparked debate among drivers. Many motorists argue the fines are too high and fear the system could be used to oppress road users. One driver, Kennedy Maingi Mutwiri, petitioned the High Court seeking to halt the system, claiming it violates constitutional rights. However, the court dismissed his application. This as NTSA Director General Nashon Kondiwa insists the camera-based system, which detects speeding and issues fines instantly, is not meant to raise revenue but to curb corruption and restore order on the roads.
There's a lot of negotiation when it comes to traffic violations, and it has been proven worldwide that the moment you make offenses and violations negotiable, you set the standard too low. Bringing certainty and deterrence to that process actually makes people behave.
A vehicle exceeds the speed limit and photographic evidence will be sent if any disputes arise.
So we charge the vehicle owner. The vehicle owner will produce the driver, because we believe no one can drive your vehicle without your consent. Definitely you must have given out the vehicle. So that is the concept.
However, some motorists complain that certain roads lack clear speed limit signage, raising concerns about where the cameras will be installed and how the drivers will observe speed limits.
All the cameras that we are putting, we are making sure that it is accompanied by the right speed signs that is showing very clearly that this section of the road, you are supposed to have this kind of speed. Of course, the speed zones depends on the design of the road and also on the land use around there.
For now, Kondiwa says motorists will pay the fines through KCB Bank as NTSA works to familiarize Kenyans with the system before expanding payment options. Melita Oletenges, Citizen TV.
The death toll from last Friday's floods in Nairobi and across the country now stands at 49. The National Police Service says more than 2,600 families have been displaced by the raging waters. 4 days after the deadly storm, many are still searching for loved ones swept away, while others count losses running into hundreds of millions of shillings. Gatete Njoroge reports.
Kingston in Viwandani Ward Industrial Area. Beatrice Nyanchama, aided by her neighbors, carefully gathers what little remains from her one-roomed home. She is among the fortunate few who escaped the Ngong River's sudden fury, a torrent that tore through the neighborhood, swallowing homes and scattering lives in its wake. In a matter of hours, the floods left a trail of devastation, displacing hundreds of families and turning once familiar streets into a scene of chaos and despair.
Toka nje kuangalia tukapata maji imesafika ni mingi, tukarudi ndani tukatoa watoto nje, tukaanza tukapanda kwa stairs. Hata wenye tuliacha nyuma zetu tunapoenda kuwachukua mvua imesawafika Wasingo.
For an area long accustomed to seasonal flooding, this time the waters came with an unprecedented force. The surging river tore down a wall on one side of the plot, sweeping away household belongings and leaving 4 families homeless in its relentless wake.
Vitu ambao tunasalalia kama mattress, mablanketi, kile kitu ingia kwa maji. Hata hiyo mattress hata ukikauza inanuka sewage. So sina usaidizi, tunataka usaidizi.
Kwa hiyo harakati kuna ukuta zilibomolewa za nyuma. Maji ilipita na ukuta ya nyuma yote ikaenda. Vitu zenye zilikuwa kwa nyumba zote zikaenda. So tulikesha usiku kucha first floor. Maji kama bado imejaa.
A paper manufacturing company adjustment to the village is grappling with what staff can only describe as a nightmare. The flood waters first smashed through the main gate before wreaking havoc on machinery, raw materials, the generator, and office equipment. When the waters finally receded, the company was left to confront losses exceeding 200 million shillings.
We are currently doing the cleanup. The process might take a week or so, the cleaning up, removing the garbage and all that. From there, we will do the assessment to know the nature of the damage to the machines. So from our estimate, it may take around 6 months to restart these machines and to get raw materials. Because you see, the paper that we use, nobody makes locally. We have to import.
The destruction, which will have a ripple effect on the over 200 employees, has been blamed on littering of Ngong River and illegal construction along waterways. In Bomet, a family from Mutigo is still searching for their son, who was reportedly swept away by floods while crossing the swollen River Nyangores last Friday.
Jana na juzi madivers wamekuwa hapa wakimsakanya ndugu yetu, lakini hatujasaidika kwa sababu leo ndo tulikuwa tuna matumaini makubwa ya kwamba tutamuona na watatusaidia kumsakanya.
At Timol Roundabout, one of Nairobi's hardest hit areas that several vehicles submerged, the aftermath is still visible. A water pipe supplying homes in Nairobi West was destroyed by the raging waters and remains unrepaired. The Green Army team has been deployed to unclog drainage systems, working tirelessly as the long rainy season continues to test the city's resilience. Gatete Njoroge, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
Now, grief is turning into anger for families who lost loved ones in the devastating floods, with many now accusing the government of negligence and poor preparedness in preventing a disaster that has so far claimed the lives of 49 Kenyans across the country. At the Nairobi funeral home, where post-mortem examinations were conducted on 8 victims, distraught relatives demanded accountability and compensation from the state, even as more families continue to come forward in search of loved ones still missing after the deadly Friday night floods. Franklin Wala reports.
Tuesday morning at the Nairobi funeral home, a heavy cloud of grief hangs in the air as 8 families wait anxiously for the results of post-mortem examination on their loved ones. Victims of the flash floods that swept through parts of Nairobi on Friday last week. For the families gathered here, the wait is not just for medical confirmation, but for closure. The families say that despite the government's promise to waive mortuary fees and other related charges, the directive has yet to be implemented, forcing them to dig into their own pockets to meet the cost.
Vile naendelea kwa mchari hapa, mimi naendelea kuwa na uchungu, naendelea kuumia. Sijui bila nitampeleka yeye afike aende azikwe. So naomba serikali awache kuongea, wa act. So wanasaidia sisi na namna gani? Anaongea huko kwa media ati hizo familia zote niko na namba zao nitarichi hawa. Na mpaka saa hii hata mimi sijapigiwa simu. Tunaambiwa baada ya postmortem hata hizo bili wanasema wanalipa, tunaitizwa bili hapa nataka tulipe. So wamesaidia sisi wapi?
Some families say that even if the government eventually waives the mortuary fees, it will still be too little, too late.
Kulipa bill sijui to compensate, it won't do anything because it will bring our loved ones back. The government has already failed. Sasa wakikuja mortuary sijui hakuna kitu wanatusaidia. We saw what the last floods did, sindio? Wangekuwa na mpango sahi.
The grieving families are now demanding compensation alongside a clear and actionable plan to prevent similar tragedies from happening in the future.
Hatuna chochote kwa upande wa finance. Nataka kama hata president ajitokeze aseme hawa familia wamepoteza wapendwa wao wapewe fidia.
They have relevant policies and documents that can be easily adopted so that we can then offer the necessary compensation. Remember, most of those who died, they were breadwinners in their families. So families are now left destitute. They have no way to move forward, and because of the negligence that we have seen from the state and the county government.
As some families begin burial preparations, others are still searching for their loved ones who have been missing since Friday. For them, the ordeal is far from over.
Nilikuwa huku Sunday, nikaangalia mwili yenye nilionyeshwa, sikupata mtu wangu. Nimekuwa nikisunguka huku na huku. Naomba serikali, president wetu Ruto, toka nje na Sakaja, mtusaidie. Juu mko karibu kurudi hapa tena, mtatuhitaji. Tupate watu wetu, kama wamekufa, tuwapate, tuende tuzike mwili.
Alitoka Friday kuenda kazi, hakurudi kwa nyumba. Tumemtafuta kuanzia Saturday, Sunday na Monday, leo ni Tuesday. Tukimtafuta tutatajaito kumpata.
Franklin Wala, Citizen TV.
Now, in yet another case of exodus to Russia, there are villages in Transmara in Narok County where families are in anguish after 15 young men were lured to join the Russia-Ukraine war. This coming just days after another revelation in villages in Gatundu, where tens of men are also said to have gone missing to join the war. This as a family in Kisii County held a symbolic burial for their son after losing hope of ever receiving his body from Russia. Clinton Nyapara, a young Kenyan who reportedly died in Donetsk, Ukraine, after joining the Russian army last year, is among several Kenyans believed to have perished in the ongoing war. Crispin Otieno has the details.
Tuesday morning, preparations are underway in Bomariba village, Bonchari constituency in Kisii County. A grave is being dug, but there is no body to bury. It was meant to be the final resting place of Clinton Nyapara, a young man who left home in search of a better future, only to die thousands of kilometers away in Donetsk, Ukraine. Nyapara is among a growing number of Kenyans reportedly killed in the Russia-Ukraine war after recruitment by Russian army. 3 months after news of his death reached home, his family is still waiting, not for justice, but for his body. That wait has become too long and too painful. After lengthy consultations with the village elders, the family has decided to plant a tree in what would have been their son's grave. A tree that will stand as a symbol of life lost far from home.
Badala ya huyu mtoto kupotea hivyo kama nyang'au ama kama afisi ama mnyama mwitu, wacha huu mtu uendelee kuwa katika lugha ya Kikisii ama jamii ya Kikisii, itakuwa ni kuchulisa wale waliomo ya kwamba aliacha uzao wake.
Haya tunaongoja. Haya tukipika simi kuonjoke, njoka amesema ongoja ripoti mpaka miezi 2 imeisha, sasa tukaamua kufanya hivi.
The family says their desperate efforts to seek help from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs have only been met with empty promises. It is the only closure they will get, it seems.
Jamii zingine zimepanda ndizi, wao wakaonelea ni vizuri tupande mti ili uwe kama ni onyesho la mashishi ya mwenzetu Clinton.
In Transmara West Narok County, there is a different kind of pain. At least 15 young men have been reported missing, believed to have been lured into joining Russia's military. Their families now live in fear that they too may soon be forced to hold burials without bodies. Nagwenya village, Kilgoris, Narok County, a remote area accessed through hours of navigating rough and treacherous roads. We meet families whose lives have been shattered by the mysterious recruitment of their sons by the Russian military. This quiet village appears peaceful, but beneath the surface is a story of loss, confusion, and deep sorrow.
Tunalia kabisa kwa watoto wetu wale wameenda. Tunalia kabisa watoto wetu wameenda ukufa.
The controversial recruitment of Kenyan youth by Russia's military has taken sons of these families, young men who left home in search of a better future. Here, 3 families sit together, trying to comfort one another in their shared pain. For some, it is their first time they have heard of a country called Russia. It remains a mystery how their sons ended up there. 3 men, 30-year-old Eric Korinko, Kevin Ledama Mopesi, and Alfred Bate, who are 35, left this village between June last year and November with the dreams of transforming the lives of their families. It was the beginning of uncertainty and heartbreak for their loved ones.
Lakini tunalia kusema tunataka mtu yetu. Kwa ajili mtu yetu ameenda, ni mtu alikuwa tumesomesha yeye. Tumemaliza kila kitu, hata mimi nimewacha shule. Halafu nisomesha yeye. Ni ndugu yangu kabisa.
Eric Korinko's shoes are some of the remaining items of his that his family has. A silent reminder of a son who walked out of his home with hope never to return.
Atutani kama yeye pato ako live na tunaomba serikali asaidie sisi. Asa president yetu William Ruto angangane asaidie sisi.
Parents who watched their sons live with dreams of a better future spend sleepless nights wondering whether they will ever see them again. And whether when they do, they will be alive or bodies brought back home for burial. It is sad that the recruitment into the Russian army was cascaded further even in far-flung areas. The families affected are now calling upon the government to help them at least repatriate the bodies of their loved ones so that they can accord them a decent send-off. Crispin Otieno for Citizen TV, Nabwenyi Village, Transmara East, Narok County.
It's time for us to take our first commercial break here on the program tonight. But coming up, we've got Power Talk tonight. This is what you can look forward to right after the short break. On Power Power Talk tonight, we talk about how ZD Trader is redefining access to the Nairobi Securities Exchange through M-Pesa.
Pepsodent is aware that globally 1 in 2 children suffer from cavities. Give her Pepsodent. It repairs tiny holes and forms a protective layer for maximum cavity protection, so she can grow up.
I don't always ask for your help.
On Power Talk this week, we're having an interesting conversation, incidentally, exactly a month after ZD Trader was launched, and it is a platform that enables Safaricom customers to be able to trade at the Nairobi Securities Exchange via M-Pesa. What time it has been, a month later. It's a good time to revisit this and really talk about this in great depth. And for that, here on Power Talk this week, we've got Esther Waititu, who's the Chief Financial Services Officer at Safaricom. Esther, it's good to have you on Power Talk with us.
Thank you. Thank you.
So let's talk about this interesting one. You know, after launching M-Pesa, obviously, you know, close to 2 decades, what inspired this move of, you know, payments into stock trading?
Great. So after 18 years, you know, when we started with Send Money, we were not sure what was going to happen next. And we then moved away from, well, not moved away, but continued. When we were able to enable payments, then we realized that there's a need for liquidity, and that's when we shifted and started to give credit, which is part of our portfolio. But also as part of our financial inclusion journey, we then shifted to savings, because if you're able to make a payment, if you're then able to access credit, then you should be able to save. And so it was natural that beyond savings, we wanted to generate and create wealth for our customers. And the only way you can do that is by owning something. And owning a share is part of that journey that takes you to wealth creation.
And we'll talk about, you know, owning shares, but it's been quite the evolution, like you've talked about, from sending money to making payments. And then it even moved into ZD, MMF before now you came into this. Just take us through a little bit of that journey and what inspired it.
Great. So as M-Pesa continued to expand, and you know, we became a system that allows both, you know, traders and consumers to exchange goods in a meaningful way, we realized that what was happening there is that, you know, balances were sitting in people's wallets. And so we looked at the data and said, what else can we do for our customers? And we could see that people holding money there for a period of time and then making a payment of whatever choice they needed to make. And so the journey then became, how do we then enable them to earn interest on this money that sits in their wallets? And ZD Money Market Fund was then launched in 2024. And that enabled our customers to be able to save money and withdraw at ease. So with the ZD Money Market Fund, you can actually place your money today, withdraw tomorrow, and you'll still have been able to earn interest. And what we have seen is that a lot of our customers are looking for options in which they can invest, but to invest easily. They want it simple. They want it convenient. And that is a role that we play by providing a platform that can enable this in a very efficient way. If you can send money, you can save. If you can send money, you can invest.
Right. It'll be interesting to hear from you what the impact has been of ZD Trader just a month in. But it would seem, you know, SMEs are the backbone of the economy, have been touted as, you know, building back better after COVID. You know, how important is it, you know, to you at M-Pesa and at Safaricom towards supporting SMEs, and what more is in the works?
SMEs are absolutely essential in everything that we do, and we believe that they're also largely underserved. When you think about especially micro merchants, and for that we even created a very specific solution that we call Pochi. Pochi la Biashara is where then micro entrepreneurs are able to separate their personal expenses from their business expenses, and we've seen that growing. Today we've got over 2 million of them actually working in our ecosystem. And what this has done for them is that it enables them to, first of all, build a credit history where they can then start to borrow, because we've got solutions where micro merchants can actually borrow against the flows that go through their wallet, which is what we call TASI for accessing credit. And then we've moved to enable them to also then, on top of that, be able to save with a money market fund. And now, the money that they have earned, they can actually then start to buy shares, which then gives them ownership in another, publicly listed company, which then allows them to participate actively in the economy. Aside from just generating income from the business that they trade in, they're then able to earn passive income through this process. So it's really a game changer, especially for the micro entrepreneurs and the SMEs. So this just gives them a simple opportunity for them to invest, and it closes the circle where they're able to manage their working capital, they're able to invest, and now they also have access to insurance products, micro insurance, through one of our products called Tunza Mapato, where they're able to access, income building, protection funds, and also healthcare facilities.
And financial literacy is important as well. I mean, beyond providing services that enable people to make more money, how important is that?
Financial literacy is the backbone of everything that we do, and the only way you can actually make financial literacy a meaningful exercise is if you allow people to experiment. So what ZD Trader does, it allows you to test with just one share. So if you're able to purchase one share, and you're able to earn a dividend on that one share, you're able to see that share appreciate. And also at the same time, because it's not always up, but also seeing it move, it starts to give you confidence. So simplicity enables confidence. Confidence then allows people to try. So that trying and experimenting then now teaches the individual how they can then work with money. So this is how we're embedding financial literacy in everything that we do. And within the platform itself, you can also get information around what shares are moving, around what market movements are happening. We have in the space of intelligence, we've got a chatbot who can give you insights. If you want to understand what a share is, if you want to understand what share moved yesterday versus, the previous day, it'll give you those insights. So that's how you learn. You learn by doing, which then helps to sustain a habit around investing.
Yeah, and hopefully they grow from buying one share to
That is it. That is it. So we're working with experimentation here. When you experiment something and you can see what value it's bringing, it allows you to then now do more. So that's really what we're doing. We're simplifying the investment process and giving everyone the opportunity to test and to grow. And with time, what we want to do is to have a lot more Kenyans investing, a lot more Kenyans who are empowered with wealth.
What has been your observation over the last month since ZD Trader was launched?
Very interesting. So let's start with the statistics. So we have over 200,000 retail investors who have opted in. And if you compare that to where the Nairobi Securities Exchange was, it took 9 years to get them to 200,000 investors. So what we have been able to cover in 1 month is what has taken 9 years to cover. And it's really powered by, mobile first, ease of being able to transact digitally. So that we have seen, and now we have seen that the trades, our trades using ZD Trader account for 60% of the total trades that happen in the market, and 2% of the value, about 2.5% of the total value. And this has been the average for the last month that we have been in the market. So what it has done is actually opened up the market, and people have been able to explore. The timing was also quite good because we had the Kenya Pipeline company IPO happening at the same time. And it was very interesting that the retail investors that came in for the IPO, 49% of them actually came through ZD. So what that shows you is that if you make a process simple and accessible, and then you incorporate it into what a consumer does every day, it can actually then really be transformational.
So all of that then happening at a time that M-Pesa is marking 19 years. Let's look back on the last year in particular, because we can't look at all the 19, which is quite a long time. But if you just take a look at the last year for M-Pesa, what have been some of the milestones that have stood out for you?
So the last year has been phenomenal. First of all, it gave us the opportunity to thank every single customer who has gotten M-Pesa to where we are today, an opportunity to give back and engage with them. But the key milestones that we've had in the last year have really been around how we have, democratized savings. Through Zidi, the money market fund, which has, interestingly, over that year has 5 million opted-in customers already investing with us, with 1.6 million of them being daily, monthly active. So that's been a great outcome. I think the second thing that we have also seen is that with that, we've seen increased usage on our data platform. So we've seen a lot more customers involved in digital tools, which is also a very big part of what we needed or wanted to do for our customers. And beyond that, then the introduction of microinsurance. So those are the two big things that have happened within this year, three big things, where we've seen more customers saving. So the pools of savings have increased significantly. Number two, we've seen the use of 4G, 5G phones, which is quite important in this journey, because if you don't have access to the internet, then you're digitally dark, means that you don't have access to a lot of these solutions. Then on top of that, being then able to insure their wealth, which we started with their devices, and then transitioning into, especially like if you look at the community of Border Borders as an example, they have a very robust health and life cover that works well for them. So those are the three key milestones I'd like to talk about in this 1 year since turning 18 and transitioning into 19 years.
So what does the future look like?
The future looks a lot like more access, true financial inclusion, where we're enabling Kenyans to create wealth, where we're then enabling them to also protect the wealth that they have created. So this is the full circle of financial inclusion. We gave them access to the tools that enable them to trade every day. We're then now taking it to how they're then able to save and get access to credit at the same time, but now closing the circle by then investing and being able to give back.
Indeed. Thank you very much for your time, and we look forward to seeing what will happen. It's been just 1 month, but there's many more to come. Thank you very much. Esther Waititu is the Chief Financial Services Officer at Safaricom, talking about Zidi Trader that just a month ago was launched, enabling users to buy and sell shares directly from their mobile wallets. 1 month on, the impact is growing. That is Power Talk this week. And just a reminder here on The Explainer tonight that Cabinet Secretary for the National Treasury, John Mbadi, will be here explaining and breaking down the National Infrastructure Fund, whose bill was signed into law by the President earlier this week. That is all coming up here on The Explainer tonight, so do stick around for that. But first, a village in Kakamega County is reeling after the discovery of 2 bodies in a rental house in the Maraba area in what is suspected to be a murder-suicide incident. Among the victims is a third-year education student at Masinde Muliro, adding to the community's grief and disbelief. Brenda Wanga reports.
It was a different kind of morning for the Maraba community in Kakamega Town, Kakamega County. In hushed tones and with shocked faces, men, women and children tried to make sense of the tragedy that unfolded in one of the rented houses. It was a parent's instinct that led to the gruesome discovery. Moses Luvonga had not seen or spoken to his son for a day. Growing uneasy over his son's unusual silence, he went to his room in Marava, only to find his son's lifeless body.
Na nilikuja kumuona asubuhi ya leo baada ya kumkosa jana. Na nilipoangalia kwa mlango nikaona damu, alafu nikajua kwamba humo si kuzuri.
Kubomoa mlango nikapata mwili umelaza hapo chini. Sasa nikaambiwa ningoje askari kwanza waingie ndani.
Dare Lua anaishi peke yake. Ila kushangaza nimepata mili mbili ambazo zilikuwa zimekufa ziko kwa nyumba. Sijui mwingine ni nani. Lakini mimi shangazi yangu ni Tariel. Nahuzunika sana.
The body of his son was found laid down on the floor with blood stains around him. But it wasn't just his son's death that had been registered in this house. In another room, the tragedy continued to unfold.
Bomoa mlango tukapata mwili mwingine ndani. Na from there askari wakachukua kazi yao. Mwili yenye imekuwa ndani kwa bafu ilikuwa amejinyonga, amehang mwenyewe, kwa amejifunga kwa ceiling juu kwa hiyo shower. Alafu na yenye ilikuwa hapa mbele kwa mlango amelalia tumbo.
The resident says it appears to have been a case of a murder and a suicide. Police cordoned off the area as they collected the two bodies for preservation, awaiting post-mortem, as well as crucial pieces of evidence that they hope to use to unravel this twin tragedy. Brenda Wanga, Citizen TV.
Health Cabinet Secretary Aden Duale says about 425 health officers, including those from the Social Health Authority, have been deployed across all 47 counties to tackle challenges in the SHA health insurance scheme. This includes activation of 47 joint county committee to follow up on teachers' complaints. Duale says the Teacher Service Commission, TSC, is seeking an alternative budget to cover work-related injuries suffered by teachers, as the service is not offered by SHA. The assurance comes days after the Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers, KUPPET, threatened to call a strike, accusing SHA of frequent system breakdowns and delays in service delivery that have left some teachers stranded in hospitals.
Morning. However, we wish to categorically clarify that the Group Life Cover and the Work Injury Benefits Act, called WIBA, provisions are not administered by the Social Health Authority. So Teacher Service Commission and the Ministry of Health, we will support them. We will engage the National Treasury to create a separate budgetary allocation to cover these two other items.
We are now sure that with this kind of assurance, our teachers will have seamless engagement with the health facilities which we have. One of the
Police in Kakamega County are investigating an incident where bodies of two students from Masinde Muliro University were recovered in the same house. According to the police officers who visited the scene, one body was found in the bathroom while another was in the sitting room. It's suspected that one killed the other before taking his own life. Our reporter Emily Chebet with the details.
Grief and sorrow engulfed Maraba area in Kakamega County after a third-year student at Masinde Muliro University was allegedly stabbed to death by his colleague, who later committed suicide by hanging himself using a rope. A father to one of the students discovered what had happened when he visited his son at the rental house.
Nilikuja kumuona asubuhi ya leo baada ya kumkosa jana. Nilipoangalia kwa mlango nikaona damu, alafu nikajua kwamba humo si kuzuri. Alafu tuka-inform polisi. Ilikuwa tu hivyo. Kwa hivyo sikuwa na habari nyingine yoyote. I just visited my son.
Dare Lua anaishi peke yake. Ila kushangaza nimepata mili mbili ambazo zilikuwa zimekufa ziko kwa nyumba. Sijui mwingine ni nani.
The two bodies were taken to Kakamega Referral Morgue awaiting autopsy as investigations commence. In Kericho County, Julius Cheriot Chepkwony was arraigned at the Kericho Law Courts for allegedly murdering his elderly mother using his sister's car, which had been parked outside their home.
Julius came, took the car, drove it towards the pathway, and then reversed and made a U-turn and clearly went to grandma's door where she was. And you can tell that that was really intentional, because after that, he put parking and just left the car on and went away.
The court granted investigators 8 days to piece together evidence, even as the other family members called for justice for the matriarch.
If at the end of the 8 days you will not have completed the investigations, you have to produce the suspect for further directions by the court.
Elsewhere in Kakamega County, police have launched investigations into a murder of a 45-year-old woman in Chombeli village in Malava constituency.
Kufika hapa kwa my sister nikapata ameuawa. Amelala hapo chini, damu iko kila mahali.
Na vile tumeona mama ni kama amepigwa na kifaa butu akakufa. Nyumba haijachafuliwa. Kama kuna kitu imeibiwa, labda ni TV. Vitu zote zilikuwa intact.
And in Kajiado County, a 66-year-old woman is said to have been hacked to death in Olopolos. According to the neighbors, 2 men who had covered their faces made their way into the woman's house, leaving her 20-year-old daughter with injuries.
Kikakuta mama ameaga, mtoto yake amekatwa mkono, najaribu kupeleka hospitali. Sasa ule mama ameenda kakufia pale hospitali, sasa kapeleka moshari.
The residents are calling on police officers to beef up security in the area. Emily Chebet, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
Tonight's business news, the Kenya Pipeline Company has officially listed its shares on the Nairobi Securities Exchange, this marking, or rather bringing an end to an 18-year drought in major listings at the bourse. Speaking during the bell-ringing ceremony in Nairobi, the NSE chair, Kiprono Kitonyi, described the listing as a turning point for the exchange. Here's Jimmy Mbogo with more.
The Kenya Pipeline Company, KPC PLC, commenced trading on the Nairobi Securities Exchange, NSE. With an opening price of 9 shillings and 30 cents per share, signaling strong investor interest on the first day of trading. President William Ruto says this is a strategic shift in how Kenya finances its development, moving away from excessive reliance on debt and taxation. The listing is expected to expand opportunities for investors while elevating the stature of the NSE from a frontier market to an emerging market standard.
We strongly root for the capital markets as the most strategic tool that supports economic growth through the provision of capital, encouraging investments and improving market system. It is one of the most powerful mechanisms we have for mobilizing savings, directing investment and generating wealth.
Let us assume, as I said earlier, that we borrowed an amount equivalent to the proceeds of the IPO at, say, 12.5% interest rate. We would pay an annual interest of 13.5 billion every year, which is nearly 4 times the 3 or 4 billion dividend that the 65% Kenya Pipeline government shareholding would have continued earning the exchequer.
According to NSE board chairperson Kiprono Kitonyi, the listing further expands opportunities for investors, adding that this is a step in elevating the stature of NSE, noting that the reforms undertaken by the boss has removed long-standing barriers to entry for investors. He, however, cautioned the political class from interfering with market activities.
To the political class, as a nation, we must safeguard the credibility of our markets. The progress we have made should not be taken for granted. It has taken many years of discipline, sound policy, and trust building. The political class should not politicize this market.
The listing of the Kenya Pipeline shares here at the Nairobi Securities Exchange now offers a new investment opportunities for both retail and institutional investors, with the outgoing chair of the boss, Kiprono Kitonyi, calling for the decoupling of politics from market affairs. Jimmy Mbogo, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
Kenya Revenue Authority officials stationed at Jomo Kenyatta International Airport will now wear body cameras in a new push to curb corruption and tax evasion. The authority has deployed 350 cameras, mainly for officers in customs and border control, to record interactions with taxpayers and cargo handlers in real time. Authorities say the move is meant to deter bribery and curb collusion that has contributed to revenue leakages through practices such as under-declaration of imports and fraudulent clearance of cargo. KRA says body cams will be deployed at all border points in the country. The initiative also comes as the government focuses on tightening tax compliance instead of introducing new taxes amid concerns over potential public backlash.
This project has been undertaken with the support of the World Bank at a cost of about 127 million shillings. Including a 2-year maintenance contract.
The reason we employ technology is not just to curb corruption. The world has changed. People are employing technology for service delivery to ensure smooth experience of our customers. When you have technology, it means the throughput is easy. The people you can serve at a particular point, it's not when you do it like you're doing it manually.
Now, manufacturers in Kenya are raising concern over what they term as a heavy regulatory burden, citing high taxation and multiple licensing requirements as key challenges undermining the sector's competitiveness. A new regulatory audit report launched by the Kenya Association of Manufacturers warns that unless urgent reforms are implemented, the country's manufacturing industry risks further decline.
Kenya's manufacturing sector has been on a downward trend over the past decade, with its contribution to the country's gross domestic product dropping from 11.08% in 2011 to 7.3% in 2024. According to the regulatory audit report by the Kenya Association of Manufacturers, high and unpredictable taxation remains one of the biggest hurdles facing manufacturers.
We've launched the regulatory audit just to show government areas that we feel they need to address. And of course, there's already an effort that has been initiated through the Deputy President's Office, and we support that. And so our report will be a complementary effort to what is already ongoing, so that we find a solution to ease the cost of doing business in the country, particularly for the manufacturing sector.
The report also highlights overlapping mandates among regulatory agencies, forcing manufacturers to undergo repeated inspections and audits by different authorities for the same compliance requirements. In addition, inconsistent county regulations, excessive licensing requirements, and the growing menace of illicit trade in counterfeit goods are further eroding the competitiveness of local industries. To address these challenges, the report recommends tax reforms aimed at ensuring predictability in fiscal policy, including limiting frequent revisions of taxes, levies and fees, and ensuring all government charges are payable in Kenya shillings. It also calls for the harmonization of regulatory mandates among national and county agencies to eliminate duplication and reduce compliance costs for manufacturers.
There is an optimal level to which regulation works. Beyond that, it may be diminishing. And we have seen situations where different agencies, including counties, where you have regulation upon regulation, and that eventually becomes counterproductive. And it is for that reason that through the Office of the Deputy President, we set up a committee, a working committee, to ensure that that does not go on.
Industry players say such reforms will be critical in revitalizing the sector and positioning Kenya to take advantage of regional and global trade opportunities. Dennis Otieno, Citizen TV.
And still on The Explainer tonight, talking about money, big money. Tonight on The Explainer, as we do typically on this show, getting to understand issues better. The National Infrastructure Fund, it was a bill, it was signed into law, and now the next steps continue. Sam Gituku will be here, as you can see, with the Cabinet Secretary for National Treasury, John Mbadi. to get some deeper understanding and breakdown of the National Infrastructure Fund. That is all coming up on The Explainer right after this very short break.